Hi everyone. I'm going to tell about the 6 W's of coronavirus. What is happening? Why is this happening? Where it all has started? When is this going to end? Who is responsible for this? And how do we solve this problem? I will go slow and I will go in parallel of all these 6 W's. It's going to take some time and it's going to be a long video because there is nothing more important than learning this for the entire world right now. So the first doubt that you all get is that how do I know? I will explain that first and then we will proceed further. So let me introduce myself first. My short name is Ram and I'm an India-born Singapore citizen. I graduated in business management and I got a job but I didn't like the work of marketing. So I quit that career and I started taking IT courses and I passed certifications and then I got my first job in India for a salary of $20 per month. Well, that's a good start for me because IT career was very interesting for me, and I started learning every aspect of the IT, from programming to administration, from hardware to software, from hard skills to soft skills, and all the softwares like database, middleware, front end, back end, everything, network, servers, data center, facility, everything. So I used to jump from one role to another role within the same company because I'm more interested to learn more. So in 14 years from there, I became an executive in IBM Singapore, mainly because of the general knowledge that I have in all the various domains within the IT world. From there on, I became a general manager for IT infrastructure for a group of logistics companies who have presence worldwide, headquartered in Hong Kong. So I shifted my base from Singapore to Hong Kong to do a major transformation project for them because he was my previous boss, and upon his request I went there. And I fulfilled that job in about 2 years and 3 months. And then I returned back to Singapore. I left Hong Kong in June 2017. And I returned back to Singapore and I started searching for new jobs. My position is actually a complex project manager. So employers will be very selective in selecting that candidate. So 10,000 people applied for a complex project manager role in Citibank. 10,000 applications I've seen from LinkedIn website. So out of the 10,000, eventually I got selected. But before I received the offer letter in August 2017, while I was browsing through videos in YouTube, I saw one video. 1-day-old chicks going on a conveyor belt and then falling off into a macerator and getting crushed. Those chicks are like, flapping the wings and dropping into the macerator. That video disturbed me so much emotionally that it changed my entire life. I left my IT career. I was in IT for almost like 21, 22 years by then. I'm talking about back in August 2017. It was a very comfortable job for me because I grew up from scratch. I was able to solve problems with ease and there is no stress there. And also when I left my IT career, I was drawing a 5-digit US dollar salary per month. So it was a very comfortable life, and I also knew that I need to leave my family for a while, um, because there is a lot of research that needs to be done. So I was very afraid of telling my wife, what she will say and all, but she's a very nice lady. She didn't say no. She's an independent woman. She has a doctorate, and she is the CEO of a company that is in food business. I'm very fortunate to have that kind of a wife. But anyway, so I left the advanced world, the IT career, and I came to one of the most economically backward place in India by name Anantapur. It's a district in the state of Andhra Pradesh in India. The reason why I came here, and the first thing that got into my mind when I watched that video, the 2 minutes video or 5 minutes video, is that I want to learn how to raise animals and teach them. So the reason why I came to this place is because I want to do research on how to raise animals naturally and make them immune of all diseases. So for that, what I need is, I came here, I leased 100 acres of land, which is free from chemicals, because this place is having a low rainfall, so very few people do farming here. And I took this lease from 3 different people who are like big farmers and who left farming for decades. So this land is, this entire 100 acres land, they're actually split in 4 different sites. They are free from chemicals because there was no farming done. And there are old trees and all, which are like, a perfect environment for me to start. And the second reason is that, heirloom chicken, heirloom not since the pre-green revolution, but heirloom since ancient times. Those are, they are left only in a few places, like in India and a few other places in Asia. That is the key. I mean, we need something that is not genetically modified by human beings to do all these things, to do my, to reach my aim. So I came here, and then I started doing researching. I went to a lot of scientists and medical professionals in the veterinary science who are award-winning poultry experts. And when I proposed the concept that I have, the common answer is that it's not possible. Some even advised me to go back to Singapore and continue my IT career because they say it's just not possible. From there on, because I didn't come here to do something unnatural, I believe only natural living we can get immunity. So I started doing my research, and after 3 years, I have completed a proof of concept. So a few months ago, I have completed a proof of concept that we can, raise chickens naturally and make them completely immune to diseases, not just infectious diseases, but also non-infectious diseases. So the proof for the concept of, my POC successful, the proof, right? Since the past 6 months or 1 year, a lot of chickens in the surrounding villages are dying. The mortality is very, very high. It's like 90% and beyond. But nothing is happening in my farm and to my chickens here because they already got natural immunity. and I will talk about it later, how to get natural immunity and all. The second thing is that I actually bought sick chickens from the market, and then I kept those chickens in every one of my roosting house. So there are about 16 roosting houses in this particular site, and I kept all these chickens everywhere. And I monitored for a month to see if it has any effect on my chicken's health. Out of 1,500 chickens, only 2 chickens died. It could be an infection, but the mortality is very low, like 2 out of, I mean, we don't normally do this, right? We don't naturally bring sick chickens and then keep here, right? So I think 2 chickens dying out of 1,500 is all right. The third one is that Denmark did a study about, they actually went to Bangladesh, and then they did a study on indigenous village chickens. So they took 400 chickens, they divide them into 2 different groups. One group of 200 chickens, they did not vaccinate, and the other group, they vaccinated. So it took about 6 months for them to complete this study. Eventually, what they concluded is, immunity in chicken, it is best to as high as possible. It is best. So the unvaccinated chicken, they concluded that the mean average is between 50 and 60. And the vaccinated chickens have a mean average of 80 to 90. So with that, they concluded that, it is best to give vaccines to chickens. So I also did the same test that they have done with my chickens here. And the mean average that I have is 156 without doing any single artificial thing, 100% naturally. So this is actually a 6 or 7 pages report. I will put that report in the link below. So this is one of the page. So what they suggest is these are the high bars are the vaccinated chickens, and the low bars are the unvaccinated chickens. So you can see 80 to 90 is the mean average for the vaccinated, and 50 to 60 the mean average for the unvaccinated. So this is my certified report that I got from the laboratory in Chennai. So they mentioned the immunity is quite high. I will also keep this a copy below. And if you look at the immunity scores, the HI titer is actually the antibody level. The mean is 156. I will also keep this under the video. You also can see 5 and 2s, which is something that scientists rarely see. So, sorry, give me a second. Give me a minute. Sorry for the break. Actually, I forgot to bring something. So it's very surprising that something like this did not happen anywhere in the planet. No scientist or no medical professional so far have achieved this level of immunity on chickens. The reason why I'm talking about chicken is because everything that I have applied in the world of chickens is also applicable to the world of humans. I will get there. So, if you read these books, right? So many people in the past have tried to do this. They either left halfway or they failed at the end. Even a group of Americans have done this. They came to India. They took the, red jungle fowl, the forest chicken, undomesticated chicken, and they also tried to do the same thing that I did, but eventually they failed. You can read that in the book. So it's hard to imagine that I'm the only person who has done this on planet Earth and in the history. So many scientists and medical professionals in advanced world like Denmark, Netherlands, they are working towards the goal of antibiotic reduction, but they still have a far way to go. And I don't even give vaccines, and still my chickens are doing well. So today I'll talk about what this social distancing, isolation, and quarantine, and also I'll talk about herd immunity, and I will also talk about some other things. I will explain to you exactly what is happening with these viruses chasing after animals and humans. Actually, at this point in time, I wanted to show you one thing. I actually wrote an email and a tweet to BBC UK Have Your Say on March of 18th. In my note, I will also keep a copy of this below the video. In my note, I told them that I have done extensive research in immunity, and I have some knowledge to say to the public, or to the experts or to the leadership. But they didn't heed it. I mean, they didn't respond, and that was on March 18th. And 23rd, Boris Johnson locked down, and then immediately the very next day, Modi also locked the country down. And we know what all happened after that. Not just the migrant workers. I'll tell you one case in a Telangana state nearby. A family who used to survive making earthen pots. They are out of business, and they starved for weeks and months. And one day they decided, they carried their 2 children, and then they dropped them into a well. Eventually, the parents also died, falling into that well. I mean, these cases, there are millions, and if not billions, right? I mean, all over the world, all over, in every country, we went through this. I think this is totally unavoidable. I mean, if I've made this video back in March 20th, for example, right? I think the world could have gone in the right direction. What I'm going to tell you today is completely the opposite. Because the world itself went into opposite direction due to lack of knowledge. And I wanted to share this knowledge. Unfortunately, there was no scientific study done like this before. on how to raise animals naturally and make them immune to diseases without any allopathic intervention. So, where I will start first is that, let's go back to September 2017 when I arrived in India. So when I arrived, I actually met several scientists and several medical professionals, like I said, and I've gathered a lot of knowledge from them. And eventually, I started studying immunology myself and the related disciplines like physiology and anatomy, like that, pathology and all. So after all this research, see, now the proof of concept is successful. Anyone can come here, anyone can do any kind of tests, and let them also confirm that this is a successful concept. So from here, I'm moving into the development stage. 3 years I have researched, and I've spent $500,000 US of my own money. And I'm now taking this into the development phase, which will take about 2 years from now. And after that, I will be able to start selling chickens. So 5 years, there won't be any income. But once it started, if I have 25,000 birds that are immune, they will give the passive immunity to the chicks. They will raise the chicks. Here all we do is naturally hatching, naturally raising, mother naturally raising the chicks, and everything is natural. It's natural selection. We don't even select the males for whatever reason. So the chicks will have, that passive immunity will protect the chicks until the age of 2 months and 2.5 months. That is where the mother will leave them and they are on their own. Again, these juvenile birds also need to up their immunity, and eventually they will be productive. So that development will take some time. I think about 1.5 years to 2 years. So after that, let us say if I have a 25,000 birds, which I call it as a seed. For me, one seed is equivalent to 25,000 birds. And from these 25,000 birds, every year we can actually take hundreds of thousands of chickens. Because every chicken can potentially give 40 every year. So let's take a conservative figure, even 20, it is still exponential. I mean, in 7 years or 8 years time, I will reach a stage of exponential, whereby I will just spread all over the world, all over India first, and then all over my state first, all over India first, and then eventually entering into the international market, setting up my farms there. And eventually my aim is to change the world's animal farming industry. So it will take 20 to 30 years, but my aim is that I want to change all this factory farming and animal factory farms, etc. And I know how to do that, but it will take some time. I will talk about it later. So after all this research, right, I mean, let us talk about the stage of immunology, the stage of immunological science. So it's important for you to really get this. Let us say the science of immunology is 100%, and that is called as knowledge, right? So let us say knowledge is here. What science every time does is it starts from here and then it will grow. So some immunologists and scientists, they say the stage of immunology is at its teenage. After all this research, I think it is still in its childhood. I'll tell you more, when I go deeper, I'll tell you what science knows and what science doesn't know. Okay, so doesn't matter if it is a teenage or childhood, this is where the stage of immunological science. That means there is still this much gap that the immunology doesn't know. So in my case, after knowing this gap, after studying immunology myself, the data is not sufficient for me to take any wrong decision. Doing something artificial is naturally a wrong decision, and the data also is not supporting that, right? So I went ahead naturally, doing all naturally until I came to this stage. So there is this much gap. I did not take this data even to apply in the world of chickens. But the world's leadership has taken this data to apply in the world of humans. You know why the science of immunology is so low? It could have been better by now actually, but it's so slow, The reason why is 99% of the scientists or 99% of the medical professionals in the veterinary science or even in human side, they are all working for commercial projects. Commercial projects means how do we milk cow more? How do we get more eggs from a chicken? How do we make it fattier so that the weight will be more? How can we make goats 8 times their normal weight? A goat typically weighs about 20 kilos, and today we have goats weighing 140 kilos. And all sorts of nonsense, they're actually, it's not the fault of the scientists, but it is the fault of the leadership sitting on them and their vision. So who is the leadership sitting on top of them? It is the big pharma, it is the animal factory farms, commercial agriculture. They are the one who are funding scientists to make them progress in their wrong vision. So, I'm not blaming scientists at all. Future has to be scientific. There is no doubt about it. And scientists are naturally pragmatic. They have to be that way. If not science cannot grow. So it's not 100%. I don't even think they are fault even 1%. So let's not blame the scientists here. But the leadership, right? The leadership, whether it is leadership sitting on top of the scientists or the leadership sitting on top of humans, the politicians and all, that leadership is very, very poor. So I think it is very well evident to everybody. So in my note to BBC, right, I told them social distancing, quarantine and isolation will not work. Why? Because I have tried that already here. You see, those concepts like quarantine, isolation will work in the world of computers. not in the biological world. I'll tell you an example. During my IT career in Singapore, I have handled numerous virus incidents. One of my skill is also virus handling. So when there is a computer virus, for example, I'm working in Sing Health. It is a cluster of hospitals and all. So when there is a virus outbreak, it causes so much suffering to people because, a doctor will be operating a man, and he's looking at the screen, and then all of a sudden the screen goes off. It's really dangerous. And also there will be emergency cases coming in, and for them to handle, they need access to IT. And IT, they are actually very dependent on IT. I mean, when we do downtime procedures, their productivity has gone down by more than 80%. So there is so much dependency on the computers. I'm not saying dependency is wrong, dependency is right. So what we used to do is, I used to take the role of major incident manager. So when there is a virus outbreak, I used to get a call, even if it is a midnight. And then immediately we all used to rush to the control room, and we will start looking at the incidents, right? So if we find a computer exhibiting some kind of symptoms, we will go pull the network cable out. And that is effectively a quarantine, because there is no way virus can go inside a computer if we pull out the network cable. Now, in a particular floor, let us say, there are many computers which are exhibiting symptoms, right? We log into the network switch, and then we shut down the interface. So that essentially is an isolation. Whether it is a floor or one of the site, we can easily isolate from our switches and routers just by shutting down the interface. So that is isolation. I try to do that the same thing in the world of chickens, when I'm doing the research here. So quarantine, right? What we do is we go and buy heirloom chickens in the surrounding villages. We actually traveled about 600 villages to collect those original chickens. So we quarantine them in a separate place, which is a shed actually. So we keep them there. The idea is that to monitor them for a couple of weeks. If no chicken exhibits any kind of symptom, then we can bring them and put it in our production site. But what happens is that because we are collecting from multiple villages, the virus is everywhere. 1 gram of soil you take, there are 10 to the power of 9 microbials. Majority of them are viruses. So virus is ubiquitous, right? So what happened in that particular shed is that one day when we go, we see 2 or 3 chickens exhibiting symptoms. So immediately we take that 2 or 3 chickens and then we put it elsewhere. The next day we go, there will be some more. And we do the same thing again. But by the time, virus has already entered the body of the remaining chickens, and they can be asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic, and so it doesn't work. Quarantine doesn't work. So we also tried isolation. So isolation in the sense that we keep within the same site. We keep the new chickens far away. And even that didn't work because virus is airborne. And we also tried social distancing. Like I kept the new chickens that we bought from villages in a separate site which is 10 kilometers far. In a matter of weeks, even there we got that virus infections. Because Sorry, I'm doing this video from my chicken farm. There is a bit of noise here and there. Please bear with me. So, social distancing, quarantine, and isolation did not work in the biological world. Whether it is a chicken or a human, it's still the same thing. So I was thinking, why these three things are not working? What should I do? And what is the reason behind this? And eventually I came to know the fact. Virus can sneak to its target. There is no such thing called disconnection in the biological world. In the computer world there is disconnection, right? But in biological world there is no such thing. A virus is so intelligent that it can sneak and to reach its targets. Do you know that there are about 8.7 million species on planet Earth, and more than 80% of the species were not discovered yet. And if you look at the population, right? If you look at the population, there will be in trillions, right? So none of this life in trillions is free from virus. They all have at least one virus in their body, and many times they are more. And viruses have the capability to control the brain of the host. The host could be a housefly. The host could be a beetle. It could be a bacteria. It could be anything, even an animal. It can hijack the brain, and then it can steer that particular host to reach its target. A lot of things our science doesn't understand, but actually in Vedas and Puranas, they have mentioned about viruses in a lot of depth, which I'll share with you later. So a virus can make use of the carriers, right? It could be a wind, it could be a rain, it could be a water, it could be any animal, it could be any bird, it could be any insect, it could be any bacteria. So even though let us say the lockdown was effective, and all the 7 billion population has stayed inside their homes, the virus will still find its target. It can hop on into a housefly, for example. Virus naturally they are very, very slow beings. So let us say if they want to move 1 inch, right, from here to here, they will take more than 10 days. So they are very slow. So what they do is they make use of the vectors and the carriers, and they are very, very efficient in doing that. So even considering the scenario that everyone hid in their homes within the 4 walls, there will still be something open for a housefly to come in. A lot of people, I think most of the people that are listening to this video underestimates virus. That scientists don't even think that as a life form. Actually wrong. We humans think that we are on top of the food chain, right? Actually not, we are not. Virus is on top of the food chain. I will explain that in a bit. So before I start that, I want you to understand some concepts. Carbon footprint, right? What is carbon footprint really is, and what you heard of so far is only a part of it. So what we heard from experts is that the carbon dioxide emissions coming from cars, ships, airplanes, and all these trucks, and factories also emitting carbon dioxide. All this is less than 1%, and I'll tell you what the 99% is. That is causing the global warming, for example. 99% is the methane emissions and nitrous oxide emissions coming from the farmed animals. The 20 billion chickens that we have at any given point in time, more than 100 billion chickens are slaughtered every year. The millions of modified cows that we have, modified sheep, modified goat, modified pig. So when these animals raised unnaturally, not giving them the right food, not giving them the right environment, methane and nitrous oxide emissions will come out. If you do the same thing naturally, there won't be any methanes and nitrous oxide. Unfortunately, no scientists know this so far, because no one has started something naturally like this. They all are commercial projects. So I'll tell you one example, right? You might have roamed around some broiler farms, right? If there is a broiler farm, you can smell it until a kilometer. That smell basically is the nitrous oxide, and it's the coming out, the poison, right? But if you come to my farm, you go inside a roosting house, you don't even feel any smell. What that means is that if we feed the right food, natural food, to chickens or cows or any animal, the outcome will be the best fertilizer. And this fertilizer helps the soil to grow nutrients to the plant, and then it's a recycle. So 99% of it is methane, nitrous oxide, and something else, which I will go there slowly. So that is the real carbon footprint, and you need to understand why some countries have less per capita emissions of carbon footprint. Let us take example India, right? India is a developing country. That means the per capita consumption of the people here should be average, right? But the per capita consumption is, the per capita footprint is less than half the average. Less than half the average, even though it is a developing country. And Sri Lanka, you take for example, right? Sri Lanka is even less. So what is there in these communities? What is there inside these people? Even though they have money, they did not really do much damage to the environment since the past couple of hundred of years, and especially since the past 60 to 70 years. So for you to understand, I need to talk about a few things. I'll go for India because I'm born and brought up here, so I know India well than Sri Lanka. So I'll talk about a few concepts of Indian way of living. First of all, I'll start with Hinduism. Sorry, this is essential actually for you to know. If not, I would have just jumped into that. This is essential, and it takes very short time, like 10 minutes, not even 10 minutes. Um, there are a lot of doubts about what Hinduism really is. Hindu and Ism doesn't gel together. They have a natural antipathy. So the original form of so-called Hinduism is called as Sanathana Dharma. Sanathana Dharma means highest form of democracy. We have democracy right now in India, for example, but it is not in its highest form. Not just this democracy is within the human population, but Sanatana Dharma says the democracy between all life forms, whether it is an animal. So there should be animal equality. That is the highest form of democracy, and that is what Sanatana Dharma says. Now, Sanatana Dharma did not ever tell what to do, what not to do, because we are living in a dynamic world. What they gave us is Vedas and Puranas. Vedas is science. Puranas is some stories, how to behave, how to, what kind of conflicts we will get normally. Mahabharata, Ramayana, and Shiva Purana. There are so many Puranas there. So they all basically tells us a story so that we will learn how to upkeep Dharma. Dharma is the concept there. Dharma means virtue. And Dharma is a dynamic thing. It goes from a macro way, it also goes from a micro way. If you talk to, if we start from an individual, right? So what is Dharma for that particular individual? With the level of virtue that he has, taking the right action, taking the right path, for that particular individual at that point in time is Dharma at a micro level for that individual. See, this all varies, virtue, we will be more virtuous in the future, we can be less virtuous in the future, but what it talks is at that particular point in time. Whatever you think is right, do it. But what Vedas say is that God like humans, but when human becomes the most dangerous animal and he causes destruction, God have to descend at some point in time to make sure that we're not heading towards a sixth major extinction. So I will also talk about human, right? So if you look at the origins of the word human, it goes back to Latin hum, humus, homo. So what Latins talk about at that time is equality. It could be gender equality. Homo is not something, a transgender thing. Transgender things are also normal people. Homo means equality among the humans. And if you look at the root of that particular Latin word homo, right, it comes from om, a Sanskrit word. So, if you want, you can go to this Wikipedia, you can actually research on what Om is. I will also tell you in a simple way. And this is also Sanatana Dharma, so you can read. So whoever Hindu who stresses on religion, that means he doesn't understand Hindu. What is it being a Hindu? He doesn't understand, because no Hindu will stress on anything, because our book of knowledge, which is the Sanathana Dharma, never said anything to do or not to do. If you need to slaughter a chicken for your self-survival, do it. There is nothing wrong in it. But abusing animal every day until the last day and then slaughtering that animal is violence. As simple as that. And there was also a lot of Hindu fundamentalists. Just give me a minute. ఇక్కడ కుసుమార్పల్లి సైడ్కి వెళ్తున్నారా? విప్మాన్ సైడ్. నువ్వు కూడా వెళ్తున్నావా? లేదుగా, తలపేసి వచ్చేసి. Sorry about that. So, what is Om? I will explain it in a scientific way. Actually, science is also very close to understand what is Om. If you heard about the string theory, when we go into the subatomic world, when we pass through deeper into the molecules and then atoms and then subatomic world, and then we go through the nucleus and then we see quarks, and ultimately what we see is a vibrating string. And this vibrating string is Om. It is the primordial sound of the universe also. And this particular vibrating string is what we call it as Atma. And Atma is there everywhere. A particle have Atma, which is the vibrating string. A human being also have Atma, which is a vibrating string. And what we look at happening in this world is Om Shanti. I have my friend in Hong Kong, my friend's wife, Jazz. We are actually traveling in a car once, and one day she saw this Om Shanti behind a car. And naturally she's afraid. So many people are afraid of Hinduism. So she asked me reluctantly, what is the meaning of Om Shanti? And then I said, world peace. Really? So Om means everything, starting from particle to a human. And we see everything as a life. That is why you see some Hindus praying to a stone, because they believe in that. If you believe in Jesus, you should believe in him. If you believe in the character of Yohe-Wahe, you should believe in him. If you believe in the character of Zeus, you should believe in him. Allah, you should believe in him. There are some people in the villages surrounding by here, they actually pray to a coconut tree. So because coconut tree also have a spirit behind, and it's right for them to believe in their belief. And there are some sector of people in the surrounding villages here who believe in a fox. They actually put a portrait of a fox, and then they'll put the red color powder, which we call it as tilakam in our local language, and then they pray to the fox. They are also right. So what we say is that anything and everything that you find in this universe, you find in this planet, The source is that spirit. And that spirit, when it is united, we can see heaven right on earth here. So, if you want to cut a mountain and take all the stones, that's fine. But make sure that it is sustainable. Make sure that we reuse, we recycle. Make sure that our future generations have these resources to continue. So they actually, we have this kind of mentality whereby we pass our properties to the next generation, whether it is lands or buildings, whatever. The reason why I'm telling you this is because, people in the Western world, you really need to get a bit of conservatism. You need to be more conservative than what you are today. There is a link between carbon footprint and coronavirus, which I'll talk about it later. So I'll first talk about herd immunity. What I said to BBC that time is, don't go for social distancing, isolation or quarantine, but go for herd immunity and care. I will explain what I meant by care and what I meant by herd immunity. Actually, among all the world's leadership, Sweden is the only country that started right. All the remaining countries went into a wrong direction, causing needless suffering. So I will tell what really is herd immunity. Actually, no scientist or medical professional in this world has said this before. This is the first time you're actually hearing what really herd immunity is. So what the scientists and medical professionals say is only a part of it. 80 to 90 people need to get immunized, blah, blah, blah. That's just a part of it. But I'll tell you the big picture. Herd immunity, right? What I'm going to say is how viruses and different animals and humans are interconnected. So I'm going to draw a virtual biological map so that you can better understand this. So let us say this is planet Earth. And this part is virus world. And this part is the world of humans. I will split this into 4. We have cities here. And then we have villages here. And then we have farmed animals here. And then this part is agriculture. So we have cities, we have villages, and then we have farmed animals, and then we have agriculture. This part is oceans. and this part is forests. It's a rough map. Don't pinpoint into the size, and agriculture doesn't mean that agriculture is big or farmed animals is small. It's not like that. I'm just giving you a rough idea. So scientists say we have found 8.7 million species so far, and more than 80% are undetectable, right? So undiscovered, right? So let us imagine that there are 10 million species. Just an imaginary figure. Let us say there are 10 million species, right? And then if you calculate the number of individuals in every species, like we have 20 billion chickens, we have millions of so many other 7 billion humans, right? So let us say we will take a fictitious number like 100 trillion. So let us say there are 100 trillion living beings on this planet, including plants, everything, in the oceans, in the forests, everything. So let us say 100 trillion, right? So I told you before that all these 100 trillion, every single one of them have at least one virus in them, and often it is more. So there are viral genes. There is also a virus in every single individual that is living today on this planet. So what virus does is it always tries to come to the other side. Okay, so virus has a purpose in life. You will know the purpose in life when you read Vedas and Puranas. Sesha. You go and look into Wikipedia for this word Sesha. I will also keep a copy in the link there. And you compare everything that scientists are telling about viruses today, everything that what is mentioned in Vedas and Puranas, it matches to the scientific world. Just that they have more knowledge of the virus world than the current scientists. So it has a purpose. The purpose is, a virus plays a very important role in the evolutionary success of every species, not just humans, but every species that we are talking about. The 10 million species that we have on Earth. It touches every particular species, and it plays a very important role in the evolutionary success of that particular species. So it has access to everywhere. ఏ హరి వెళ్ళిపోయాడే బండి ఉందా బయట వీడియో అవుట్ చేస్తున్నాను అవతలకి వెళ్ళి మాట్లాడు. So this virus touches each and every species, right? And it always tries to make sure that the fittest of the survival happens. Only the fittest will survive. So it passes through oceans, it passes through the wild forests, and it passes through our agriculture and then farmed animals, and eventually it will get to the humans. I'll explain a bit more, how that connectivity is in the real world. You can actually relate yourself. So villages, and after that cities. So what scientists say is they talk about this concept called zoonotic diseases, right? Zoonotic disease, right? Actually, the term zoonotic disease is a wrong term. In reality, it is zoonotic defense. They defend us. All these animals and birds and all the species defend humans. But because our activity in the past couple of hundreds of years has raised global warming, climate has changed. We went on a deforestation drive. We actually polluted our oceans. Oceans became like acids. Ocean acidification is a big problem. So because of all of that, right, the immunity of the animals plunged. So they are no longer able to defend us. I'll give you an example how the defense works. For example, right? So we are in our house surrounded by, let us say, cows, goats, and chickens. These animals will get exposed to viruses first because they play in the soil. You look at a cow, they call it as a wooden tongue, right? It has a long tongue. It licks everywhere. It licks the surfaces. It licks everywhere, right? So it has the first chance of getting exposed to a virus. We humans normally, we will be hygiene, right? So we will not be exposed first. They will be exposed first. And you look at a chicken in its natural habitat, it will scratch the surface and it will be eating the insects. It will be eating the seeds and all, right? So in that natural habitat, chickens used to get infected first. Cows used to get infected first. Goats used to get infected first. So the amazing thing that they do is that they produce antibodies. And they give those antibodies to humans in the form of milk, in the form of eggs, in the form of meat. So the blood plasma that we are talking today, if you look at the indigenous people here or even the traditional people here, they pour the blood of the chicken right at the last of the cooking process. So they will only boil for 2 minutes and then they will consume that blood. It is really, really tasty and it contains antibodies as well. So I'll tell you, there is no scientific research performed in this area so far because nobody funded that. The government did not fund, there is no commercial company that will fund this kind of things because they think it's not commercially viable. They are wrong. This is actually more commercially viable, which I will prove. So the best part is that, today, if a person gets corona virus and then he recovers, after a month or two, he will go to a blood bank and then he will donate his blood, right? So the doctors will take the plasma out of it because the antibodies are there in the plasma, and then they will inject into a person who is infected with coronavirus. So it helps a bit. But there is a difference between a human produced antibody and a chicken, for example, or a cow, for example, produced antibody. These antibodies are smaller. If human produced antibodies like this, these are like this, smaller. It's very important because the smaller the antibodies are, the chances that it can penetrate into the cell membrane, it can even penetrate into the narrow tissues of the organs. So the antibodies, the passive immunity that we used to get once upon a time from these chickens and cows are the best kind of antibodies. So in the past, when we are living naturally, we are all asymptomatic. The infection comes and then goes. We don't even know. Very rarely people used to fell sick. They used to take rest and they used to recover in a couple of days or a couple of weeks, back to work. There was never in the history of human beings rushing to a hospital like how it happened in the past couple of months since March. So let me talk about it. The main objective, the wrong direction that the world leadership have went, is that they want to flatten the curve so that hospitals don't become a bottleneck. The very idea itself is very wrong, because in the case of corona, hospitals have little help. You see, I'll talk about it later when I'm talking about the immunity. The usefulness of hospitals. Of course, the medical professionals have demonstrated their courageous behavior, their sacrificial behavior. They pawn their lives to help others. All this is beautiful. But if you look at the value of what a hospital does to a person, is primarily two things. One is blood plasma, and the other one is a ventilator. So if these are the two things, then ventilator, you don't really need a complicated ventilator. I mean, you can even have a helmet, what Italy has used. So if it is just blood plasma and ventilator, you can do a decentralized system. You don't have to have a centralized system like what hospitals do. You can split them. You can even do home-based. You can even do a center-based, which is neither to people. You can do a decentralized thing. You don't really need a hospital. So the idea to flatten the curve itself has a counter effect on us, because coronavirus is different from other viruses. No, I mean, I've taken a look at the genome and the behavior that corona is doing, the R0 values and all. Corona is different because in the case of corona, it is best to get infected early, not lately. It will infect every single person on this planet, and that's a fact. Because in the world of chickens, we have this Newcastle disease virus. This is actually seen as the biggest threat by the poultry industry, and I've seen opportunity in it, because only when chickens go through that particular Newcastle disease virus, their immunity will be up. And that immunity to be up is very important, because there are billions of different types of viruses living on this planet. Scientists say millions, but actually there are billions. It's a very dynamic world. You can't go static, case by case basis. You can't. It doesn't work actually. You have a virus, and then we take time to produce a vaccine, and then there will be another virus, and then another vaccine. It doesn't work that way. The only way it works is that improve their immunity to a level that no virus or bacterial pathogen can do anything to that particular body. So we are better getting infected back in March or April than now. We are better to get infected now than later this year or next year. I'll tell you why. WHO is not saying this, but there is a pattern of increasing virulence in coronavirus. Initially, it started slow. Actually, the world is thinking the origin of corona is China, but the origin of corona is actually Sri Lanka. I know it's an extraordinary claim. I'm sure scientists eventually will confirm the same thing. Um, I will also tell you, towards the end, talking about the origins of corona. At that point in time, I will also go in detail. So, because the origin is in Sri Lanka, it might have originated back in September or October or November. So, Sri Lankan authorities only starting putting their fingers on 26th of January. So they had a period of 3 to 4 months. The virulence is very low because it just started, and most of the people in Sri Lanka already got herd immunity naturally. That is the reason why there are only about 11 deaths. That's a very, very, very minimal number. 11 deaths among a nation. That is how it should have been. So Sri Lanka is blessed because the government didn't know. If the government know, they will only make it worse. But because the government is ignorant, the whole world is ignorant at that point in time, they naturally got herd immunity. And I will tell you why natural immunity is much, much better than vaccine-induced immunity. A vaccine-induced immunity gives a narrow immunity, whereas a natural immunity gives a broad-based immunity. So I will talk about it later, when I go into the concept of immunity. So, unfortunately, we are in a situation where we need to get infected earlier than later. And when I said earlier, I'm not saying you should inject coronavirus or whatever. You should just go with your natural behavior. So, natural epidemiology. What is natural epidemiology? There is already social distancing within human population even before the lockdown. Right? We don't go and kiss everybody, right? I mean, we maintain our distance. The social distancing is already there. So, continue work. I'm saying, if there is no science and there is no scientists who have discovered this coronavirus and then blowing the whistle, if that did not happen, world should have been in a very, very much better position. But because that happened, it created a lot of fear, anxiety, stress. Fear kills a man in the case of infection. It's very evident to me here. Chickens are naturally frightful. So if we try to catch them, they will run out of fear. So we shouldn't, if I want my chickens to be immune, I should not even try to touch them. Only when I need that particular chicken for slaughtering, only at night when it is roosting, only then I can go slowly and take it and come out. Other than that, during daytime, we should not touch them. And they are fearful of snakes. Even if the snake and comes makes a sound, out of fear itself, 60 to 70% of the chickens, the broiler chickens or layer, this kind of low immune birds will die just out of fear. So in my case, if there are 500, at least 2 or 3 chickens will die out of fear, and that is really a very big death rate, out of because these are natural red jungle fowls who have immunity in their natural behavior, natural habitat, which gives them the kind of braveness that is needed for them. They are less fearful. So fear kills. I'll talk about it later. Later when I go into the section of testing and wearing a mask, all these things. So herd immunity, right? So this is one defense. The forests that we have and the oceans that we have is the first line of defense, and then we have agriculture, which is the second line of defense, and then we have the farmed animals, which is the third line of defense. So we destroyed all these three defenses. No wonder the virus can easily penetrate to humans. 60% of the vertebrate population has declined just in the past 50 to 60 years. We have dead zones in oceans. All the wrong agriculture, all the wrong commercial agriculture that people are doing, putting chemicals in the soil, pesticides, herbicides, genetic modification, whatnot. All these are polluting our water bodies and polluting the oceans eventually. Deforestation drive. Why deforestation happens like this? Like, for example, why the Amazon is going down? To feed the chickens, to feed the farmed animals, modified farmed animals. I call them man-made animals. They're actually not natural animals. If you take, for example, a cow, right? There will be a hump. If there is no hump, it is a man-made animal. It is no more natural, because natural selection is the key. Darwin also said this. Natural selection is the most important part of the evolution. And humans are doing unnatural selection, artificial insemination, all kind of evil things on animals, right? I want more milk, I want more weight, I want more what, this and that. So this attitude, right, wanting more for less, is the real evil. It's there in every one of us. I too have it. I too had it in the past. I'm also wrong. I'm also one of the person responsible for all this mess. Because I ate broiler chickens in the past. I ate vegetables which are filled with chemicals in the past. So in a way, I supported chemicals. I supported broiler farms. But because I was ignorant at that time. But even later when I saw all these things, I still ate a bit, right? So I think every single person on this planet today is responsible to some degree. When I look at those CEOs of big pharma, factory farming, commercial agriculture, all these are good people, at an individual scale. They have been good fathers, they have been good brothers, but I doubt if they have been good husbands. But they are actually not really bad people, just that their collective vision is bad. The collective vision to drive the revenue, not looking at the damage that is being caused to the environment. So what has happened in the past 50 to 70 years, or even before that, is basically, you heard about the tortoise and hare race, right? So the hare will be running without watching its surroundings, and then the tortoise will be walking slowly, watching its surroundings, gaining knowledge on the way. So eventually we know who won, right? So we are actually running like a hare, not even looking at the surroundings, what kind of destruction that is being caused. So basically there are three evils. It's not personal, not at an individual level, but it is at a mental level. There are three evils in this world. One is greed, and the other one is hatredness, and the other one is ignorance. So these are the three evils that we have, and these three evils are related to coronavirus. I'll tell you what is the spiritual reality behind this coronavirus in a bit. So the only way, so we have external defenses and we have internal defenses. So we have killed all our external defenses. All the three defenses that we used to have is gone because out of our ignorance, greed, and hatredness, all these three. Now the only long-term solution for coronavirus, because of this leak, until we put them back in their positions, all the three different defense layers, until we restore them, this virus will have a free run. And this is not something that we can do in the quickest time. It will take 20 to 30 years to restore them. I know how to do that, but it will take 25 years from now. The global summit, right? I mean, on climate change, they actually started in '79, more than 40 years. Until now, they don't know where to start. They are working in all wrong areas, improving vaccines, improving antibiotics. All those are not sustainable. They didn't even find the entry, where to start, where the door is. They don't even know that in 40 years. In 3 years of my research, I came to know that. So it is only possible with the chickens. Chicken is the center bind of this jigsaw puzzle. I know it's unbelievable for everyone, but that's the fact. Actually, if you want to restore all these three different systems, right, it's like a 10,000 step journey. Imagine like hiking Himalayas, right? Actually, it's not that difficult, it's simpler than that. So imagine that I have already taken about 850 steps in that solution or in that route, and there are 9,150 more, and I know each and every step of what this 9,150 is. I will explain this to the world, but it's complicated, so we really need experts or big entities like United Nations or WHO. They have to come here, and then I can actually show them the way forward. But considering that no one does anything, I can still do this with in the next 25 years. So 2045, I think I can achieve this on my own mind, my own team, and my own money. So if you want to know what the 850 steps that I have already taken, believe me, it will take at least a month for you to stay with me, listen to me. So the external defenses are gone, right? And it will take 20 to 30 years from now, right? So what can we do in the short term? So the long-term solution is going to be permanent, but the short-term solution is going to be painful. I'll tell you what that short-term solution is. So let me talk about immunity first. So if you go to a medical professional, right, or a scientist, and then you ask him this question, what is immunity? He will say general immunity, specific immunity, non-specific immunity, humoral immunity, cell-mediated immunity. No way, but any average person can understand this. But I will explain in layman terms, so that anyone can understand all these concepts. When I'm in my IT job, I used to be the major incident manager, right? Not only for viruses, but any severity one problem. I used to be a major incident manager. And after the incident is resolved, we have to go to the root, and we have to do the root cause analysis. And then eventually I have to present it to the customer management. And customer management don't understand the technicals, right? So I used to sit at home and then think, how to explain this complexity in a simple way. So every time I used to do this, and one of the reason I got promoted every time is because of this. I mean, they can easily understand what I'm saying, and then they can be assured that things are being taken care. And that assurance, I need to give that assurance to them, right? So actually that, layered thinking process also helped me to make my mind layered fashion. And that is the reason why I'm able to explain to you in simple to understand terms. I don't think anything that I've explained so far is hard to understand, right? I'm trying my best to keep it as simple as it. It's like, what is the difference between a complexity and simplicity? You go to a Google page, right? The page looks so simple. But what is there behind the Google page is very complicated. So we have a complicated world, and how to explain that in a simple fashion, right? So I'll explain what immunity really is. Looks like a Wi-Fi symbol, right? So this immunity is designed by Mother Nature. It's the same design, whether it is an animal or a human. So in the design of immunity, every particle that goes into our body, or every microorganism that goes into our body, 99.99999% is beneficial. So, I mean, scientists talk about commensal. They talk about beneficial, commensal, and parasitic. In my knowledge, there is nothing commensal, because when you have an infection, it's like a war that is happening inside your body, and every commensal microbial life will come for rescue. So all are mutualistic, all are beneficial. Only a tiny percentage, like 0.0001 something, right? Only the tiny percentage is a potential pathogen. So what immunity looks at is that every particle that comes inside, or every microorganism, even if it is a coronavirus which comes inside, it treats that particular microorganism or particle as a guest. So it's an optimistic approach, right? I mean, if you have a pessimistic approach, you should be doubting every single thing that comes into, which is very inefficient, right? So what happens is, a pathogen arrives into our body, right? So it's very similar to a war scenario. Humans have fought so many wars in the past, and it's very, very similar. So a pathogen arrives, and then what the immunity does is it will start mediating. And assuming that mediation did not work, and then the particular virus replicates itself, and then the immunity sends the first layer of defense. And this host and guest, in my case, this virus and the host is our body, virus is the parasite, right? So this interaction science knows very little. They say it's very complex, they don't understand this interaction. But we can actually see this. This actually works based on the principles of Dharma. So, this is the enemy, and you have your big army within your body. The billions of microbials that we have. Actually, this body is like a planet Earth. So we have billions of animals. Microbial life. It's in a small scale. Small scale comparison. So we have so many microbials, and every cell is independent. So we have billions of cells, billions of viruses, bacteria. So many microbials are there, right? So all these want to defend this body because that is where they are living in, right? So the immunity, which is the virtual part, will dispatch the first line of defense. So this first line of defense will be fighting with this particular virus, right? So when that fight is going on, the immunity will be watching, so that it can decide what to send at the second layer. And let us assume the first layer failed, right? This first layer will pass information to the second layer. It is called as immunological memory. And this is the most important part. So immunity is like a supreme military general, right? So until he invokes the second layer, people will be asymptomatic. No symptoms displayed. I actually want to talk about asymptomatic here. An asymptomatic person is a healthy person who have his natural immunity at the highest standard. So if you happen to be closer to an asymptomatic person, and let us say if the virus comes out of his mouth and goes into your body, actually it's a boon, because it acts like a natural vaccine. It could be a virus particle, it could be a killed virus, or it could be an attenuated virus. Attenuated virus means because his body is healthy, it is either able to kill the virus and makes it into pieces, or it can attenuate the pathogenicity of the virus, the virulence of the virus. So it's a boon to get it from there, because it acts as a natural vaccine. You know what vaccine does? They also do the same thing, right? Virus particles and killed virus, attenuated virus. So if an individual gets an attenuated virus, he have a better chance to recover. And once you get natural immunity, which is broad-based, you will not have any more problem with the coronavirus in the future. You may have a second infection, you may display some symptoms, but chances of you not to die is much, much, much higher. Scientists won't tell this because they don't have a proof, right? When the science is so low, we have to use our common sense, right? Our common sense, our 5 senses that we have are the simplest sensors, or the simple sensors for a complicated world. Our common sense are like the Google page, the first Google page. Okay, so the second line of defense, right? So if you look, I will give another analogy of this so that you can easily understand. You know how our medical system is? We have a general practitioner at the first level, who will diagnose a patient, and then he will, if he thinks he's not the right person, he will forward to a specialist, and then there is a super specialist, right? So we have 3 layers there. It has to be that way. It has to be that way, because without that, it's not efficient. It's counter efficient. It has to be that way, the sequence. Now, let us say this is immunity, right? There is only this much space for specific immunity. This much space for general immunity. So there is big space for general immunity and small space for specific immunity. I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, there will be fewer super specialists, there will be more specialists, then there will be even more general practitioners. So once the second layer kicks in, right, the immunity, it's like immunity communicating to you in its own language. So you will get fever, you will get cold, and sore throat, all these things, basically are symptoms. So if you're exhibiting symptoms, your immunity is telling you that, this is what is happening inside. I have tried my best. I even send the second layer now. I will still continue to fight, but I want to inform you, because a human is the king of this body. I mean, that spirit or the mind, right? The human mind is the king, and the immunity is the supreme military commander. And the bacteria that we have are our best fight. I mean, they are our best team among all the remaining things. Cells and bacteria, these are our best bets. Okay. So when, in the case of corona, what we should do? Corona, like I said, corona is different from previous infections. What we should do is we have to bear the pain. So you have fever, right? And you should not take a paracetamol, because it actually demotivates the military commander inside and our troops, our soldiers. It actually demotivates. How many of you believe, I don't know, our thoughts vibrate? Even Einstein has said this, our thoughts will vibrate. So if you're not willing to take the pain, and when your entire team is actually painfully working to save the body, they gets demotivated. So you need to take the pain in the case of corona. Actually, in the case of anything, if you can take the pain, you should take the pain, right? So when you get sick of corona, the best thing that we should do So I'll just go there a bit. I mean, let me finish this first. And by this time you have reached, means it might have passed a week, right? So this third layer is actually the antibody layer. It's the adaptive immunity. So we have adaptive here, and then we have innate here. So innate is the most important thing than adaptive, because there are so many species on Earth who do not have adaptive immunity at all. There is no specific immunity at all. So like for example, you take fish, it only have innate immunity, and that is what it is protecting from all the millions or billions of parasites that are there in the oceans. So when you have an infection, when you have an infection, until you reach the third step, let us say we have people who have resolved within the first step or within the second step, right? So we have people, the innate immune system, there will be some people who are asymptomatic, and if you test them, you can't find antibodies in their blood serum every time. The reason is because there is no need to produce antibodies, because the innate immunity itself has tackled the case. It doesn't need specific immunity for that. So the memory of innate immunity is the broad-based thing. So that is where the real training occurs. And when corona comes again, or even some other virus comes again, this innate immunity is the general immunity. So it has better chance of detecting the parasite and neutralizing it. So this is the antibody layer. Actually, antibodies should be the last resort, because innate immunity is more important than that. So let us say I got infected with coronavirus. Actually, ever since corona started, I never took one step back fearing out of corona. I did my work. If I have work in the nearest town where there are some cases of corona, I still went there. I never wore a mask. I never kept social distancing, because I know we have to leave it to the natural epidemiology. No one is, it doesn't spare anyone actually. So I will talk about it later, why this is happening and all. So I might have already gotten corona, but I never had any symptoms. So I may be naturally immune, but let us say I'm not naturally immune, right? And then I get coronavirus, right? So what I should do is I should stay home, and the key is this: forget about external defenses, they are lost. Forget about the bad food that we have eaten in the past. Forget about the bad environment that we have lived in the past. But there is still one natural thing that will save you. That one natural thing is having a strong mind. Fear kills. A strong mind saves. So let us say if I get coronavirus, right, I'll stay home and I'll keep my mind and body active as much as I can. I will not rest for long. I will take rest, and then after that I will keep my mind and body active. Active means not walking and all. Active means walking within the house, okay, and reading a book. Don't watch anything funny. Be serious. Read a book. Try to learn more about what is happening around the world. What is this global warming? What is this, deforestation? All this sea level rise and all these kind of things. Try to improve your knowledge. If you are like that, I'm not actually not saying this out of nowhere. 1 year ago, I got an infection, and my fever is so high that even 3 thermometers are not able to measure. I'm not sure how much I had. Definitely it's above 106 Fahrenheit. So I can feel myself, it goes chill and then it goes hot, the body gets hot and chill. So it's like a step ladder thing. And I know it's like, it's typically caused by the bacteria Salmonella. I never had it in the past, probably first time. So I have high fever and I have these chills, everything. Believe me, I did not even go to a doctor. I stayed home. In 4 days, I kept my mind active. I kept my body active. And in 4 days, I got completely recovered. And fifth day, I'm back in my farm. You know, everybody knows here. They actually came to my house and they wanted me to go to a hospital. I rejected and I stayed back at home, and they have seen my recovery. So anyone can come do any sort of investigation here. But what I'm trying to say is that I'm not telling this out of nowhere. You know, I did it myself. We actually don't need allopathy for coronavirus. They need allopathy. I mean, allopathy is needed for other things like, you know, cancers, and there are so many other operations that are required, right? So let us say you go to a hospital and then they give you a painkiller. I told you how painkiller affects your immunity. Now let us say they administer a drug, right? Like, let us take remdesivir, right? Remdesivir has, during Ebola time, there was research which killed people, and they abandoned that research because it's no more commercially viable, right? So the company is not interested. They just abolished it. If they would have continued, we would have known remdesivir better now, but they didn't because it's commercially not viable. So in that particular study, they have noticed enzymes, excessive enzymes coming from the liver, which have an effect in the health. So let us say you take remdesivir, and let us go back to this war scenario. It actually, you know, the king running like a headless chicken in front of army. That is the best analogy that I can give. So you are obstructing your own army with this drugs, right? So, and then what they do, they may administer an antibiotic. So they say, even though it's coronavirus, there could be secondary infections. So they will do that only when required. That's all fine. So when they give the antibiotic, it kills the entire bacteria within our body, right? So I told you before, bacteria is the best bet that we have within our body. So 99.99% of the bacteria is beneficial, not 0.001% of bacteria could be pathogenic. That is also not a confirmation scenario. So they killed all the 100% bacteria, right? So I ask a question to them, you know, how do you know that the 99.99% beneficial bacteria that you killed couldn't have saved the life? They laugh and then shake their head like that. So what's next? I mean, the blood plasma, right? I said blood plasma can be administered home-based or decentralized based. I think some people have too much expectations on blood plasma. It will help, but you know, it's not a miracle. It doesn't do a miracle kind of a thing. But you know, nothing bad in trying that. And then ventilators, right? I mean, if I get respiratory problem, right, I will know in the very beginning itself. And if I can sit in the home and do my breathing exercise, you know, normally we only breathe this much, right? Actually, we should breathe like this. This happens only when we jog, right? The cardios, right? So So we only breathe this much, and then when we wore a mask, right, we breathe this much. So it actually has a counter effect on your immunity because the oxygen levels plunge. Oxygen is everything. You can live without water, you can live without food for days and weeks, but without oxygen, I don't think anyone can live even 5 minutes. In our local language, we call it as prana vayu. That means it is the one which gives life. So it's so important. Oxygen is so important. Wearing a mask puts you on the other side of the equation, which is the fear one. If you don't wear a mask, it will put you on the other side of the right side of the equation, which is having a strong mind. So when I say care, right, I mean, for God's sake, I mean, we have done so much destruction, we have caused so much violence to so many life beings on planet Earth, and we have been doing for decades. For God's sake, at least now, start caring. I didn't say take care. I'm saying start caring at least now. Care for others, care for animals, care for Mother Nature. Do something, only that much you can do something. You don't have to do more than what you could. I mean, we have seen people running with the kids away from their parents because parents got coronavirus. What kind of system is that? What kind of dharma is that? I mean, if your parents are sick, you should be sitting with them. You should be telling them that, nothing will happen to you, you'll be okay. In that process, you will strengthen the mind of your parent, and in the same process, you will also strengthen your mind. That is the only way we can get out of this. Please understand this. I will explain a few things that I have seen in the spiritual world. I will talk about it. Most of you may not get it completely, but I will be showing some evidences. Actually, what is happening right now with coronavirus is that the history is repeating. Scientists say this is the first time. True, this is the first time in the known history, but there is unknown history, which Vedas and Puranas have kept them in the form of a cryptic code, and we need to decrypt it to understand. Let me check if the video is still running. Okay, good. 2 hours already done. So, I'll talk about testing, right? So, when we have a scenario where getting infected early is better than getting infected late, what is the use of testing? Do we know whether it is good or bad? Yeah, there is coronavirus within me. Is it good or bad? How do I know? So, testing is a waste of time. I told you, wearing mask is not right. Now, washing hands, right? Millions of tons of chemicals pouring into the underworld, into the oceans, ever since this corona started. People washing hands with their chemicals, right? I mean, if it is a natural hand wash, that's fine. But if most of the hand washes that we have, are either kills bacteria, good bacteria, which are there in your hands, and good bacteria which is there in the underworld, Or so this washing of hands with chemicals, right? It is not even good for your epithelial layer. I don't know why scientists don't say this. It's neither good for your epithelial layer, which will also cause immunity to go down. It is also not good for the underworld because video చేస్తున్నాను అటు పక్కకి వెళ్ళిపోలే. It is not good for the underworld because microbials like what we have, they don't have a tongue, right? They can't taste the tongue and then decide whether they want to eat or not. So microbials don't have a tongue. They actually absorb food from their body, right? So if we feed bad food, like all these synthetic fertilizers, for example, they will become bad. That means they will become more parasitic, and they will become more virulent, and they will come after the humans again. So washing hands is actually working in a counter-effective way. So the whole world, I'll talk a bit about how the world has reacted, right? So 18th of March, I sent that to BBC UK. I'm sure they have read it because it is have your say account, right? But that someone might have laughed and thought poor Indian. It's fine. So 18th of March I sent that. 23rd March Boris Johnson announced lockdown. 24th March Modi did it. Now Boris Johnson innately knew that social distancing is not right, lockdown is not right. But then he succumbed to pressure from the surroundings, from the scientific community, from the political community. The first quality of a leader, he has to believe in himself. After all, he's the one, elected by the people, right? Democracy. So he innately knew, and he need to listen to his innate voice. But then he succumbed, right? Now, the developing world is actually looking at the developed world to take actions. Whatever they take, the developing world will also take. So whatever Boris Johnson took, it not only affected UK, but actually it affected a lot of the countries. Now, everyone is going actually after Trump and Bolsonaro, right? So after you hearing all what I've said, your common sense will tell what is the truth. So if you believe what I'm saying is the truth, just imagine how brave those people are. Trump innately knew that this is wrong. Wearing a mask is wrong. Lockdown is wrong. People need to get back to work because not about economy. Actually, if that didn't happen, it actually it affects badly in the handling of the coronavirus itself. Nothing to do with economy there. But Trump is not able to rationalize that because of lack of knowledge. And but then he stood out, right? I mean, President Xi actually hid inside, right? But he came out. He actually gave the right example. He said no social distancing, no lockdown, no wearing a mask. It's very difficult, to really face that kind of a situation that Trump has faced. So much pressure from the public, so much pressure from the scientific world, so much pressure from the political world. So I will talk about Tedros, right? I think he made a major role in everything that happened in a wrong way. I'm sure he will see this, he will watch this video one day. My message to him is that, Tedros sir, I know you had a bad past. You actually lost your younger brother who you loved so much at the age of 4. And you seriously think it was caused by a virus. And then you developed hatredness. You started developing hatredness towards virus since then. You studied immunology, you studied community medicine, you took the charge in June 2017. I actually left my charge in June 2017. You are actually offering drugs to Asclepios. I am actually offering a cock or a rooster to Asclepios. Actually, I didn't know, offering a cock to Asclepios is the last wish of Socrates. I didn't know when I started all this. Halfway I came to know. That's interesting, right? So, my message to Tedros sir is that look at the World Health Organization logo. Right? You have a staff, you have a snake rolled to it. Snake, the meaning of that snake is better described in Sanskrit. They call it sarpa. Sarpa means it can be tiny, which is invisible. It can be huge also. So, there is no way you can kill a virus. I'm telling you this. Viruses are immortals. 5 major extinctions that happened on this planet couldn't do a thing to them. And you want to kill. So, we call it, right now what is happening, Corona, right, is basically, I will step into the spiritual world now. So, in India, we call this avatar as Sesha naga. Sesha naga means Hades in Greek. Both are same. Both are the king of the underworlds. So Sesha naga is the king of all serpents. And it is one of the primal being since the creation. Scientists also now confirming viruses could have been there 4 billion years ago. They actually don't die. They go into a dormant position, which is not a physical one but a memory one. And when the time comes, they will again take the body of a virus. So, in Vedas, what they say is that there is this Sheshanaga not only in planet Earth but everywhere in the universe in a dormant form. And when the time comes, it will take the shape of a virus body. So, virus could exist in Mars, for example, right? But it will be in a dormant form. So, the message that I'm telling to Tedros sir is that we actually stepped on the underworld. If you come here, everybody knew that a snake will bite us only when we step on it. So that is why every villager, they don't have any fear of snakes. All they need to do is just to make sure they make the right step. And then they don't step on a snake. That's all. As long as they do that, nothing will happen to them. So now, virus is also a snake, and humanity has stepped on the snake very, very hard. Synthetic fertilizers is a way stepping on them, and all the chemicals that we are using is a way stepping on them. So because we stepped on them, they have now come after us, and eternally that is part of Dharma, because there is equality between life forms. Because we did wrong to them, they are taking the revenge. So from an eternal view, that's all right, that's okay. So this Hades, right, he had a blessing of Zeus, right? We call Zeus as Shiva. In Christianity, Father. In Jews, Yohiwahe. In Muslims, Allah. So these are all the same names of the same God. So Zeus is almost powerful, we all know that, right? Even Elon Musk has confirmed this. So there is no way, Mr. Tedros, that we can delete that snake from that logo, okay? So we can only live together, and I will appreciate if you can understand this and change the direction, and at least try to keep the deaths to minimal. So actually, I liked the politicians who, I didn't have a good attitude on Trump before, but after seeing all the brunt that he's facing, to remain to his values, and also, Jagan Mohan Reddy, the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, he was also telling from the beginning, it's a small thing, don't worry. But the scientific knowledge, Dr. Anthony Fauci, he actually thinks that he knows something, but he don't know something. You see, I think I have a right to talk like this because no single individual ever who is present today or in the past have achieved the feat that I have achieved in the world of chickens. Come and take a look at here. Do all the testings that you want, and I will tell you how to make humans immune. Because if a person knows how to make chickens immune from diseases, he also knows how to make humans immune. Because chickens are more vulnerable than humans. The agriculture that we have, the agriculture has to change. Commercial agriculture is not sustainable. And I know how to do it. You will be around, in 25 years, I will also be around. Let us see. And you know what? Once I do this, it will not only solve the problem of diseases in the human world, it solves all the major problems that we are facing today in this planet. Global warming, deforestation, ocean acidification, soil erosion, sea level rise, dead zones, income inequalities. It is a one solution to solve all the problems. That is why I'm saying why Newcastle disease virus is so important in the chicken world. It is a one-stop solution for all the problems. Scientists don't believe in this. I'm telling you, you get immune to coronavirus, and then even we will all get better. Some people say, 7 billion population in the next 20 to 30 years will become 1 billion. I don't believe so. I mean, we need to keep all the 7 billion population living. Just follow to do the right thing. So, the liberal traditions in Hindu, they pray Vishnu, and the conservative traditions in Hindu, they pray to Shiva. So, in conservative traditions, what it is told is that we all knew, every Indian knew that this is coming. We know this is Kali Yuga, we know this is going to end. But in our Vedas and Puranas, what was told is that it's not going to be a sixth major extinction this time, because the God will descend and he will put the entire world into a golden age where truth prevails. No one need to lie in the first place. So he descended in the form of coronavirus. So in the conservative traditions, they say Shiva will come in the form of Rudra. Rudra means Lord of Terror. In liberal traditions, they say Vishnu will descend in his 10th avatar. But there is no clarity, what form he will make. But actually, there are so many parallels and comparisons that I have made with Sesha Naga avatar and Vishnu. Sesha Naga is one of the several manifestations that Vishnu take. So it matches them, right? It matches the liberals, it matches the conservatives. It also matches the Greeks. So if Tedros want to make the most dangerous animal on this planet, which is a small sect within the human population, he wants to make them immortal. And they are the most dangerous animal in the planet. Why do you think Zeus will not give that blessing to Hades to stop that? So in mother traditions, right? In mother traditions, people pray to Mother, Adishakti. So they say this form is Shamsana Kali. So this picture is actually, the worst phase of her. She actually starts with some kindness. She knew she has to destroy the evil, right? The evil is basically in our minds. What is? Greed, hatredness, and ignorance. These are the three evils that we have in our mind, and it wants to destroy that mind. So it starts slow, and that is the reason why women are less affected and children are less affected. Actually, our children, should have gotten infected at an early age, so that they would have developed immunity by now. But because of the lockdown, we lost that chance also. It's never too late. I mean, even now, we should do that. So, the virulence, right? What it describes in that story is that she starts with some kindness, and then eventually she will go to the peak, the highest, the Bhayankar. Bhayankar means terror. So I'm going to show you that particular Rupa. Rupa means form. So she is Kali Mata. She is actually the Mother Nature. She is actually Adishakti. She is the mother of everyone. So obviously she is the most virtuous and most good. But because of all this himsa that is happening on planet Earth, she has to take the tamas form. In just like in Western world, how we have good, bad, and ugly, we have sattva, rajas, and tamas. So tamas is the dark energy. So in our traditions, what they say, sometimes it is good to be ugly, sometimes it is good to be bad. So it always keeping up dharma. Dharma is the most important thing. So if you need to be ugly to keep up dharma, you can be. So Mother Nature has come in this ugly form, dark form, to do good in the long run. Because if this doesn't happen, actually in September, right, 2019, last year, I actually told my wife that something like this is going to happen. The world is going to come to a stop. Even your business will stop. I told this, I have that transcription in my WhatsApp chat. Anyone who want to come and see, I will not put that in public because it's a personal chat. Anyone who want to come and verify, they can do it. I mean, the reason why I'm telling this is because, trust me, I know something. So, this is the Bhayankar avatar of Shamsana Kali. You can go and check in the internet. So, now the Chinese mythology, right? The Chinese mythology also talks about the same thing. Legend of Shesan Mountain. Shesan, just an N after Shisha. In Sanskrit, it is the Shisha, S-H-E-S-H-A, and in Chinese it is Shesan, just a N in the end. S-H-E-S-H-A-N. So, if you go to this Shesan mountain and the legend, what the legend says, perfectly matches with what the Greeks are saying and what the Hindus are saying. So, what they are saying is that, this one, we call it as milking the ocean. So, there is an ocean here and then there is a snake here. There are good people this side and there are not yet good people this side. They all do an exercise, like it's like, three worlds coming together. So, our scientist Machio Kaku, I like him very much. He talks about type 0, type 1, type 2 and type 3 civilizations, right? So what Hindu says is that type -1 comes first and type 0 and then type 1. And then there are type 2 and then there are type 3 also. So type -1, type 0 and type 1 all will come to a common platform to churn the ocean for the nectar of immortality, that is what they say. So just imagine, the GDP driven economy that we had since the past couple of centuries, right? The GDP driven economy is actually the same thing that they have said there. And this has happened before. This is not the first time that we are doing. So, in this this Chinese legend also is saying the same thing. I'll put a copy of this also below. So my point here is that history is repeating, and we have knowledge in the ancient texts. Whether it is Chinese or Greeks or Hindus, there is knowledge, and we should seek knowledge from there, because humans are destructing nature much faster than how much the science can cope up with. So science has its own pace. We can't depend on that. We also have to look at the knowledge that we have in ancient texts. So now I'll talk about origins of corona, right? So I'm saying corona origin is in Sri Lanka. it actually mentioned in Puranas, Simhala Island, so which is present day Sri Lanka. They even named, so there is a female and male, the parent of coronavirus. So first a female and a male should mutate. And it's very clear that the female origin is from Sri Lanka. And this female name also they named Padmavati. So this female virus has mated with some other male in Sri Lanka, or it could have mated with some other male in China. But one thing is clear, the female origin is Sri Lanka. So let us imagine a scenario where Sri Lankans, the female got mated with another male within Sri Lanka, and then it has slowly spread. The virulence is very, very low. Nobody even know. Maybe one or two people, or a few people, like hundreds and 200 people, isolated people, might have displayed some symptoms, might have died for some reason, but medical doctors have no way to confirm that. So January 26th, before they already have 3 to 4 months, there is natural behavior, natural epidemiology. So the virus already spread in most of the Sri Lankans. So that is why they are immune. Remember, vaccine-induced immunity is narrow. It will not help if the virus mutates. But natural immunity is broad. It will help even if the virus mutates. This is very, very, very important thing. Keep aside, the dangers of vaccine in the first place, right? But even considering that it is safe and working, it is still not very effective. So really, please get infected at the earliest. Again, like I said, be natural. That is the key. Be natural. If you are lucky, you will get the virus from an asymptomatic person. Even if you get virus from an infected person, a sick person, when you approach them, even that is fine, because your internal defense system is still stronger. Eat the right food. Do what I said. If you get those symptoms, if you can manage to keep a strong mind, I'm 100% sure that you will survive. So, about the origins of corona, right? So, female virus, very clear where it came from. But when I try to connect the dots where the male has come from, it is actually showing everywhere. It could be a single male, it could be a multiple males. It could have originated from South China Sea or Pacific Ocean at large, or the Yangtze River, or some part of China, because Chinese have this habit of importing animals from all over the world. So the male might have come from anywhere or everywhere. It could be singular or multiple. And there is also another indication that the virus has come from Rudra Nakshatra. So Rudra Nakshatra means the star, Betelgeuse. In fact, when I was talking to my wife in August 9th, I think, last year, I told her that something is coming from Rudra Nakshatra, the Betelgeuse star. I could be wrong, but actually it is pointing to everywhere. But one thing, the Chinese culture have said this, the Hindu cultures have said this. I did not check the Greek texts. Okay, so one thing is clear. They said the epicenter is going to be Wuhan. How amazing is that? If you look at, in Hindu terms, they say the place Krauncha. In Chinese thing, they say, in Wuhan, there are two towers, right? One is the Turtle Mountain, and the other one is the Snake Mountain. So this is the epicenter of the GDP driven economy. So this one, the whole world does this. I mean, let us say this is actually a test of God. Who is the real good, and who is the real bad, and who is the real ugly. So eventually, so we are all flat now. So eventually it will be hierarchy. So whoever is ugly will go underworld. Whoever is bad. Actually, there is no concept of bad. We call Sura and Asura. So that means Sura is good. Asura means not yet good. He is in his own time zone. So it's not like in the English translation of bad, ugly like that. It's a different form. Like I said, Rajas and Tamas. So the average will remain in earth, and the best will go to heaven. Heaven could be Mars. Actually, it also mentioned that Mars was once inhabited by humans, but this eventually their virtue also has gone down to a stage where the type 1 civilization also have to come to type 0 civilization, and then the type -1 also will come to type 0, and then we have all this kind of exams, tests, and then eventually again the 3 worlds will go back. So the mail is coming from everywhere. I'm not sure, but the epicenter is Wuhan. It was clear. It's very clear mentioned there. So what is important for us now is care, right? Don't care for yourself, care for others. So I'm going to end the video here. I will put all these artifacts that I have below the video. You can ask me any questions in the YouTube page, and good luck to you all. I wish we will win this and we will prevail.